and I met Marie, I think I told you last month, those of you who were here, I met her a few years ago about 3 years ago at the Afterlife Explorers Conference in Sydney. I don't know much about Marie.
So you're about to.
You're about to, but Marie does work with past life regressions and between life regressions and looking at those particular facets of human existence. So without any further ado, please welcome Marie.
Thank you. Hello everybody. Thanks so much for coming along. It's lovely to see you all, and many thanks to Cheryl and Barry for inviting me here and allowing me to share with you my experiences. I'd like to start to let you know who I am, where I come from, how I've got to where I am now. Because I think that it's so important that we listen to all of the little signs and the nudges and the prods along the way from the universe to get us to where we need to be. We're always here, each lifetime, for a particular reason or two. And the earlier we understand what that reason is, the easier the life becomes. So I was born many moons ago into a very strict Roman Catholic family in the UK. Very, very loving, very supportive, very happy. But I always knew that I was different. I always knew that I knew things that other people didn't know and heard things and saw things that I quickly realised not everybody experienced. And when I asked questions about this, I was very quickly shut down. You know, you get yourself off to confession, my girl. You don't talk about things like that. It's the work of the devil. Which then bred fear in me, because if my family and the nuns at school weren't talking about things like that, well then it must be bad. So I shut it down as much as I could, for as long as I could. It was always there, but I ignored it. Probably until my late teens, early 20s, and I thought, you know what, I'm a big girl now. I can't ignore this anymore. I'm going to go and find out what all of this is about. So the first thing I did was I went on a psychic development course, which was the best thing ever for me, because it taught me two main things. It taught me about protection, because to explore these other realms, we need to be sure that we're exploring safely and responsibly. The other thing it taught me was that there were other crazies out there like me, so it wasn't just me. So I went off and I explored all of these different avenues. You know, I did mediumship and the psychic development, tarot, you name it, I explored it, dabbled for quite some time. And then after a while, I thought, well, what's it all about? You know, I like this and I like this and I like this. Is there something specific that I need to be doing? Couldn't understand what it was. And I was thinking about it one day, and I realised that there was an awful lot of pain and suffering around me, my family, my loved ones, lots of sickness. My parents passed at fairly early ages. I was born with a physical disability myself. I have no sight in my left eye. And I'm thinking, what is all this about? And the more I tried to figure it out, the more puzzled I became, until in the end I just threw my hands up in the air to the universe and I said, right, I'm not doing it now, so there. You know, I'm trying to find out what it is that you want me to do, what I'm here to do, and all I see is all of this around me. Well, it's not fair. I'm not doing it. And what came back to me almost instantly was, you're a healer. And to be the best that you can be, you need empathy. And what better empathy could you have than actually working with and accepting all of this suffering with your loved ones around you. It's a great grounding to build upon. And I was still quite young at that time, so it took me a while to accept that. I didn't like it. It's not fair. I don't want this. You know, that's our normal human reaction. But after a while, I processed it, and I thought, well, okay. If I'm this healer, what is it you want me to do? How am I to do this healing? And I was drawn to Reiki. And when I went and explored Reiki, I realised that all of the reasons for me being so tactile, to want to touch and hug and, you know, reassure all of these people that would come to me and had been coming to me over all of these years, ever since I was a young child, it all made sense. It was the energy trying to work through me to reach out and help others. So I went and I did my Reiki level 1 and 2. I went on to become a Reiki master and practiced and taught for a number of years very, very happily. And then after a while, I started to get that nudge. There's something else. And this is what I'm talking about when we say that the universe always brings us signs. You know, we feel sometimes that we're stuck. Well, look around and listen and watch, and you'll find the sign to move you forward. The nudge for me was hypnotherapy. And I really didn't know why. When I researched hypnotherapy, I realised that it was a combination of more mainstream, conventional, scientific type healing that the Western world is sort of coming around to accept now. But there was also an energetic side to it. And I thought if I can combine the two, I can open up and reach out to an even greater field of people that need help out there. So I went and I did my clinical hypnotherapy, and I'm a government accredited advanced clinical hypnotherapist now. And I combined the two for a long time, my clinical hypnotherapy and the Reiki. But because that energy was always running every time I worked, even with a clinical client that had no idea about energy and didn't want any idea. You know, I might have somebody come in and say, just stop me smoking. I don't want any of that psychobabble stuff, just stop me smoking. Okay. And they would have no idea that whilst I was working with them, that energy was flowing and healing and adjusting automatically, and they had no idea, and they didn't need to, because all they were interested in was the end result. And then after a number of years, I started getting that nudge again. Oh my goodness, what is it this time? I have no idea. I'm very happy doing what I'm doing. What is it? And I had no idea whatsoever until I was in Sydney on a workshop with the Dalai Lama, and we'd been in this wonderful energy all day with the Dalai Lama. I've been fortunate enough to do 3 two-day workshops with him now, and each time I do, I'm just a bubbling wreck. I'm just crying constantly. I'm an empath, and that energy really, really is so overwhelming. So I'd been in this beautiful energy all day, got back to the hotel that night, fell onto the bed, exhausted, picked up the book that I just happened to pick up at the airport on the way down, and it was Journey of Souls by Michael Newton. And some of you may be aware of Michael Newton's work, some of you may be aware of Brian Weiss's work. So I started to read this book, and it was all about life between lives regression and past life regression. And I'm reading and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, here it is. This is it. This is what that next nudge has been all about. And I thought, well, this institute is in America. I'm going to have to go to America to train. But the pull was so strong, I knew I'd have to find the airfare to go. And as I turned the next page, the next case study was by Peter Smith, who just happens to be the president of the Newton Institute and also just happens to be Australian. He lives in Melbourne now, but at the time he was actually living in Sydney, just up the road from where I was staying. What a coincidence. So the next morning I picked up the phone and I spoke to Pete and I explained my story. And he said, well, very occasionally the Newton Institute comes to Australia to do trainings here. They used to come every 3 to 4 years, and in fact they don't come at all now. They haven't been for a number of years. But he said, we just happen to have a training coming up in Australia in a few weeks. Yes, of course you do. So I went off and I did my training with the Newton Institute for past life regression and life between lives regression. And I've trained with Brian Weiss as well. And Pete and I are now very, very good friends. I spoke to him just a couple of days ago, actually. And while I certainly don't profess to know it all, because when we do feel we know it all, that's the time to go home. We always have something to learn. I'm going to be learning from you today. I really feel right now that I've found my niche. I've found where I need to be. And I know that whatever I do from here, wherever I go on to, this will always be part of it. And I will share for you now that it's not common knowledge, but I've just received my latest nudge. And that's to teach past life regression to clinical hypnotherapists. So that's my next step. But I know that I will still be practicing, I will still be journeying. And I thank the universe daily for being able to indulge in my passion. So that's me, and that's where I am. And I'd like to share with you what it is that I do and why people come to me to journey. Each lifetime we have, as I said earlier, and I'm sure all of you are so well aware, we choose when we're up there in that in-between world, between each incarnation, we choose what our journey is going to be all about. We choose what experiences we're going to have. We choose what lessons we need to learn. We also choose which souls we're going to spend that particular lifetime with. Because in the interlife, we all belong to a particular soul group. We all have our own soul family. And there are other soul families that are our neighbours and we know. But we choose to incarnate usually with members from our own soul family, and that would help to explain why you get that instant feeling. Sometimes you meet somebody, oh, I know you. I don't know what is it? Have we met before? And you know what? It might just be just a glance from somebody, just a hello, just walking past somebody in the street, but you get that, I know you. Well, that's because you probably do. Part of your soul family. And when we do come down here, and we've chosen who we're going to incarnate with, our learnings are intertwined. with those people. So you might sit up there with somebody and say, you know what, next time down there, I've got to learn to be more kind to people. I've got to learn about compassion. I have to experience what it feels like to be compassionate towards somebody else. And there might be somebody there from your soul group that will say, I'll help you do that because I've got to experience love and self-worth, and the only way I'm going to be able to experience that is if somebody shows me compassion. So do you see how it all, blends in? The trouble is, of course, when we get here, we forget all of that. Because if we remembered what we brought in with us, well, then that will be like having the answers to an exam. We have to experience it. We have to go through it. And some lessons are easier than others. Sometimes we'll learn lessons that are so easy or have experiences that are so slight but necessary that we won't even realise we've had them. But other times, the big stuff, we know. They could be painful. They could be presenting as illnesses. They could be presenting as emotional heartbreak. And when we've explored all there is to explore on that logical level, then quite often people come to me. I call myself the last chance saloon, because by the time they get to me, they've done everything else, and nothing has made sense. It hasn't worked. So they might come to me for, I don't know, I had a gentleman come to me one day, he had a terrible pain in his shoulder. And he'd had all of the MRIs, and he'd had physio, and and all of this, and it wasn't working. He'd taken painkillers, quite strong painkillers, for quite some time, and he was starting to become immune to them. And he said, I really can't take any more because, I just won't be able to function. So he said, I just wonder where it's coming from, because the doctors say, there's nothing wrong, it's fine. So we journeyed back. And what we did was, we set the intention, we set the specific intention of going to a lifetime where this pain may have been created. Sometimes people come just for the experience, and that's a great journey. But other times, people will come for something specific. So this pain, when he was in the chair, and I padded it out, put a cushion behind him, made him really, really comfy. He was obviously in a lot of pain, but there was no swelling, it wasn't inflamed, nothing like that. Anyway, we went bang, straight back into this lifetime of him being on a battlefield. And he was in this chain armour. And he had they had like spears and hammers and all of these types of weapons, and swords too. And on this battlefield, this guy was actually stabbed right here. His chainmail, and because we can be very specific. And he said, I've been stabbed. And I said, well, just allow yourself to know, how could that occur if you have this chainmail on? And he said, it slipped. He said, the chainmail has slipped over here towards my neck, so I can feel it on my neck. And the sword had gone right in here, to the point where it had actually killed him, because he bled out. It was very, very painful, and he had bled out. Now, because he had died in pain, suffering, he hadn't been able to process that in that lifetime. So he had passed over carrying pain, carrying an injury here. And the injury wasn't just physical, it was emotional, because another human being had done this to him. And he didn't know this other human being. They were just carrying out orders. So there was quite a bit of stuff going on there. So what we did was, when he passed, in a soul state, we looked back over that lifetime and we said, what was the learnings over that lifetime? What were the learnings? Well, the learnings were that it wasn't personal. We were just carrying out orders to be in that battle. That guy didn't mean to cause me any particular harm. And all of the damage that was created in that lifetime, both physical and emotional, we were able to leave in that lifetime because he understood where it came from. It wasn't serving him in this lifetime anymore. You know, it was painful. It was holding him back, this shoulder. Well, you know what? This comes from there. So we were able, once he understood where it was from, to leave that energy in that lifetime, to actually forgive the other soldier that stabbed him, because he was just carrying out orders. And if he hadn't have stabbed him, he would have probably been killed himself. Self-preservation. So when we came back, I said to him, how's your shoulder? And he went, actually, it's okay. And he was moving immediately. Sometimes it takes a while for it all to process, for the healing to occur. On this particular occasion, he was, yeah, that's good. And he went away comfortable, and I've spoken to him a couple of times since, and since that time he's been completely free of pain. Which I think is absolutely amazing. And I know that there's an awful lot of skeptics out there, but I would like those skeptics to perhaps explain how that pain was removed from a past life regression and not from conventional treatment. Great stuff. The other part of the work that I do is life between lives regression. And this is really, really deep, really interesting stuff. So it's where we journey in hypnotherapy into the spirit world. So we'll go through a gentle, comfortable, safe experience into a past life. But we don't stay in that past life for very long this time. If we're working just on a past life regression, at the end of that past life, once we have the learnings, we'll come back to today. In the life between lives regression, after that final day and the soul has passed, instead of coming back, we'll go into the interlife. We'll go further. When this happens, we're completely in the hands of the guides. We are with past life regression too, but even more so with life between lives regression. And everybody's experience is different. One size doesn't fit all. And I don't do group therapy for exactly this reason. Because everybody experiences hypnosis differently. Everybody's journey belongs to them and nobody else. And what may be true for one person, that may be their absolute truth. It may not be a truth for another. So when we're in the interlife and we're connecting with guides and we're connecting with masters and we're connecting with gods and goddesses and deities, if that is your belief, it's all done very comfortably. Because for me, as a spiritual Christian, I guess I would describe myself to be, for me, when I pass over, I encounter angelic-like beings. I encounter guides, energetic guides. I encounter beings that perhaps will present themselves as monks or nuns. For somebody that has different beliefs to me, such as a Hindu, when they pass over, the energies that they will encounter will present themselves as deities that they associate themselves with. So gods, goddesses, Shiva, whatever is true for them, that's how the energies, that's how the guides will present, so that they'll recognise them. So who for me may be Jesus, for a Buddhist, might be Buddha. For a Muslim, it could be Muhammad. The energy is still the same, exactly the same, but they just present themselves in different ways, so we can recognise them. So usually, when we're journeying, at the gateway, that's the first stop. Somebody meets us, and that could be a guide, it could be a loved one that's passed. And they will take us to where they know we need to be. And there are many, many places to visit in the interlife. We can go visit the soul families that I spoke about earlier. And there's always a feeling of coming home. Always a feeling of coming home. This is so familiar. I remember now. This is what I hear a lot. Oh yes, I come this way all the time. So somebody will come to meet them, and they'll take them to perhaps their soul family. Beautiful. And then they'll recognise people. Oh yes, I remember you, and I know you. And there will be people there in their soul family that they actually have in their present life at the moment too. Because when we incarnate, we only bring down a certain amount of our energy with us. There's always a smaller amount of energy that is left in the interlife. That's what we know as our higher self. That's our connection to the universe. That makes sense? So that's always within us. So even though there may be somebody here that you recognise, oh yes, my daughter, that energy is indeed the soul of perhaps you recognise as your daughter in this lifetime, because part of her energy is there in that place where you're visiting. We get to meet our council of elders, and usually it's the same council that we visit each time we go home. And this council of elders, it's usually anywhere between 5 and 7 beings, but it could be less, it could be more. Everybody's different. And these council of elders, we tend to think, with the limitations of our human minds, that they're going to sit in judgment of us. And in fact they don't. They're there to help us. They're there to guide us. And they'll answer questions for us whilst we're there. We can ask specific questions, and if it's deemed that we're allowed to know the answers, they'll give us those answers right there, right then. What is it? Why? What do I need to do to get over this sense that I'm being held back from moving on in my relationship? Well, you have to learn trust. And how do I learn trust? And then you'll get some pointers. So not only you'll learn not only what you need to be doing, but how to do it. It's very specific. We can go to the classroom, perhaps, where we do our learnings in between each lifetime. Because we don't just go up there and whiz around and, have a good time and then decide to come back. We do have learnings to do. We do have a nice time up there, and we do have some recreation time, and you can learn about that too. But there's jobs to be done. Always work to be done. Because even when we stop incarnating here, when we've learned all that we need to know on this earthly level, well, then there's work to be done there. Because we have to know what it is that we're going to do as souls. Some of us may be teachers, teaching other souls to help the likes of us here to go through what we're going through right now. We all have guides, we all have teachers, we all have helpers. It may be that your job is to help those souls that are passing to transition easily and comfortably. It might be that you're a healer, because when those souls of people that we perceive to be evil pass, they don't just go where the rest of us go. They go to a special healing space. They go into very, very deep healing. And there are guides there that know exactly what they need, and that's their job, to make sure that they do heal, that they do understand. And those souls are usually kept there until those guides are convinced that they have learnt their lesson and that they have let that dark energy go. And if they don't let that energy go, well, then usually they're kept there. There are other areas that we can visit. So many different areas. We can visit other lifetimes. Not just lifetimes on this planet, but perhaps lifetimes that we've had on other planets too. There's a particular planet that I have quite a lot of people coming to me to visit. They don't know they're coming to visit there until they come to me. But it's a blue, watery planet. It's not gassy, it's water. And these people live in the water. And it's really hard to describe, but they say that they feel almost part of the water. They just flow in this special place. And you know what? They're desperate to get back there. And I always say to them, why have you chosen to come here? This is a beautiful place where you come from. It's a beautiful place where you spend a lot of your time. Why in this lifetime have you decided to come here for the experience? To remind me just how beautiful that planet is. Yeah? Because this planet is one of the hardest places to spend any time on. This planet here has more older souls than younger souls, because a lot of younger souls wouldn't be able to handle it. There are some beautiful, beautiful places, beautiful energies in this world, but there are some very hard ones too. I have a particular friend in mind who I'm going to speak about now. She transverses the universe. She chooses to go to lots and lots of different planets. And when I asked her once in an LBL, so where are you from? She said, over there. I'm from over there. So I said, well, why are you here? She said, I just wanted to have the experience of the denseness of Earth. And I said, but how have you managed this? You know, she said, I said, how did you choose to come through, to get here? Because, you know, you hear that we choose our parents. Well, indeed we do. But our parents have to agree to bring us through. And she told me that her mother is from over there as well. And her mother, bless her, had agreed to a life on this earth to bring her through, to bring this other being, who wasn't her daughter, there, but to bring this fellow being from this other planet where they just spend their time whizzing around. She agreed to bring her through so she could have this experience in this lifetime. So there's always a connection. There's always something going on. I hear a lot of people talking about suicide. What happens? You know, we hear these stories, don't we? You mustn't commit suicide because you're breaking the contract. You'll go to somewhere awful. Actually, no, you don't. Where you go is into healing. Because whoever commits suicide is in such an unwell place that they simply need to be healed. So that's where they go. And again, there are guides to focus specifically on that. They go into healing and they stay in healing until they're well enough to go off and do whatever it is that they choose to do again, whether they choose to come back here, whether they choose to stay in the interlife for a while. There's no judgment. The only people that judge us are ourselves. So we go to a life selection and a life review area too. So the life selection area is to get an understanding of why we chose this particular lifetime. You know, you're shown the alternatives. You know, you've chosen to be a female in Australia at this time. The other possibilities could be that you could have been a male in China in the 15th century. Or you could have been an Eskimo. Or you could have been Cleopatra. Whatever. You get an understanding of why you've chosen this lifetime. Why do I need to choose this life? Because this body will help me to learn and experience everything that I need to learn and experience in this lifetime. The life review area is where you go back over the life that you have lived, or if we're visiting in a life between lives regression, you've lived up until now. So it's like a really, really quick, review of everything that's happened right from the word go, from the moment that you were born. And not only do you get a viewing of that, sometimes it's like on a screen. Not only do you get a viewing of that, but you also get a sense of what other people were experiencing at each one of those times. So if you'd been mean or you'd been kind to somebody, you'll get an understanding of what that person was feeling when you were being mean or when you were being kind to them. And there's no judgment there. It's all learning, so that you can really understand how that feels, and you can make a decision there and then to make sure it never happens again. The bad stuff. All the nice stuff, you can say, yeah, I like that. I liked helping that person to feel good. So I'm going to continue that. I'm going to do more of that. We meet our loved ones that have passed because they're all there. And you'll have a conversation with them if they deem it possible. get an understanding, maybe bring about a forgiveness or a feeling of love. You know, if somebody's passed and they may have passed at a time where perhaps you weren't very happy with them, you know, it was causing you angst. I wonder what they were thinking when they passed. I shouldn't have said this, I shouldn't have said that. You can then have that conversation. And because that conversation is on a soul level, the understanding between the two of you is so much deeper than it ever would have been on a human level. The healing is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. If you need healing yourself, you'll go off to a healing area. And everybody's healing area is different. You know, I hear some people, like me for instance, when I go into that healing area, I'm in a crystalline room and I'm lying on a marble table. And I have these magnificent beings all around me, just pure energy. And they're beaming their energy on me as I'm lying on the table. And I can feel that energy flowing through me. I can feel it moving to every part of me, both physically and emotionally too. And I'll stay there for as long as I need to. And that's what I always say to people, you know, I'm just here to help facilitate, to guide. This is your journey. And if you need to spend some time doing something that you're enjoying, or you want to spend some time with people or beings that you're enjoying being with, then you just tell me to shut up. And I'll simply hold the energy for you until you're ready to move again. Some people's experience, having said all of this, is simply to be peaceful and nothing more. Some people have all of these experiences and more that I've just spoken to you about. But others don't. And that doesn't mean that the session has failed in any way. It doesn't mean that it hasn't gone right. It means that it's been perfect just for them. Some people are so stressed that all they need to do is to go into that peaceful state of healing that I spoke about just now, to allow them to let go of all of that stress, which then in turn brings clarity so that they can understand what they need to do without having this, you know, one-on-one experience with guides. Some people just need to be. When I have people coming to me that are from other planets, which means that we've all come from the one, the whole, and we just spark off from that. But we all choose where to have our first incarnation. And some people choose to have their first incarnation on another planet, and I don't blame them. But that means that that planet is where they're from. That's where they call their spiritual home. Apart from that place in between where they also go. But because they've come from another planet initially, when they come here, they find it very, very hard. Very hard to you know, integrate with the energy here, both physically and emotionally. I had a lady come to me a little while ago, and she was really worried about her little boy. I think he was only about 5 or 6, I think. Now, I'm not going to take a 5 or 6 year old into regression. I don't even do clinical hypnotherapy with children. It's just not my thing. But I worked with this lady, and she was a proxy for her son. So we set it up so that she had her son's energy flowing into her so that she could experience everything on behalf of her son.
Interesting.
Really is. This is how I work with children. And there's all sorts of ways of having to set it up, and some more successful than others, but this was a really, really good connection. So she came along, we set it up, and she was there on behalf of her son. The reason why she was worried about her little boy was that he couldn't tolerate many foods. He was a loner. He didn't have many friends. He was very serious, but she was really, really worried because nutritionally it wasn't good for him not being able to tolerate all of these foods. And the doctors couldn't find anything wrong with him. What we found out was when I asked the son through his mother why he wasn't able to tolerate food, he said, "I'm used to star food." And when we explored a little bit further, it was because he wasn't from here. He was from a much lighter planet, and the nutrition that they had there was much lighter, much healthier than what we have here on Earth. So he decided to come, as most hybrids do, and that's what we call people who have had their first incarnation on another planet. He decided to come for the experience. But it was really, really hard for him, this dense energy, and he wasn't able to tolerate so many foods. So what we did was we worked to find out a way of finding out what food he could tolerate and how it should be prepared. And once he was able to tell us that, then his mother was able to go away and give him some better nutrition. And that's what she did. And he's probably 7 or 8 now, and he's very healthy and very happy. She said he doesn't integrate an awful lot, but that's okay. But he's healthy. So there's lots and lots of different reasons why people would come. I remember my very, very first Life Between Lives Regression. It was during my training course with the Newton Institute. And I went to a very, very special place. And again, we all have our own special place, you know. For some people it's water, for some people it's, you know, trees, for some people it's magnificent buildings. It's all very, very different. For me, it was magnificent buildings, absolutely magnificent buildings. And one of the questions I asked my guide when I was there was, what's the theme of my incarnations? We all have our own theme. And it was healing. And then I was shown various different lifetimes where I'd been a healer in all different areas. So, you know, I've done the witch thing and been burned to the stake. I was a herbalist in medieval France, lived in this little, you know, this little shack on the edge of the village, and I was, you know, an outcast, but the people used to come to visit just, you know, quietly because they knew my potions were healing. I was a seer in Egypt. I was a monk in Tibet. You know, I used to go up the mountain and pick all of the herbs and mix them up. So my theme was always healing. And I was taken to a lifetime of particular interest. And I said, take me to one of these. You know, I'd like to experience it. And I was taken to one that was in Egypt, long time ago. And I had no arms and no legs. I was female, but I had no arms and no legs. And I was looked after by these two very handsome young men. And they used to carry me about, sort of like almost on a date, you know. And I didn't have to do anything except use my thoughts. I wasn't able to do anything else. I had no arms, I had no legs. It was just projecting my energy out there to people to heal them. And these young men were my security guards, my carers, if you like, and they would carry me around to all of these different places, and I would just send the energy out there. It was not my energy, I'm just a channel, but I would send the energy out there. So still a type of healing. So there's so many things to explore, so many questions to be answered. And it's all there. It's all there. We can, as I say, we can connect with loved ones. We can meet our guides. We can get an idea of how well we're doing, not just physically, but on a soul level, a spiritual level. How am I doing, you know, on my spiritual journey? What can I do to make it easier? What can I do to fast track it? It's limitless. And it can be life-changing because it stays with you forever. So any questions on any of that at all? Any thoughts? Any?
You spoke of suicide. What about medical suicide where someone's going to die anyway and they hasten the process? Do you still consider that suicide, or is it?
I don't necessarily like to use labels. But what I would say is, however we choose to end our life, and whoever chooses to help us, as long as the intent is good, there won't be any judgment. I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't, but what I'm saying is there will be learnings for both parts, for the person that is ready to go and for the person that has agreed to help them. There will be learnings, but no judgment.
That's very psychic of you to put the last bit on, thank you.
Yes, welcome to my world. Anybody else have anything?
If nobody else.
No, Terry. Me. Sorry, Jeremy. I'm butting in. I just wondered with the group here of, you know, how people are born to drawn to different places.
Yes.
But, you know, in my case it's been China and Egypt and a lot of places. I just wondered if there are certain places or a general place that the group here is drawn to, you know, like a particular culture or something. A lot of people are drawn to Egypt.
Absolutely.
The earth.
Yeah, the earth.
The
Is there any
earth,
like, a particular culture? Like, just say where anything that you've been drawn to? Yeah.
Hawaii. Yeah, Hawaii.
Hawaii. Yeah.
Hawaii.
What country? What culture?
England and Scotland and Wales.
Yeah.
Egypt.
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 Yeah.
Egypt and Japan.
Egypt and Japan. Yeah. Any other? No particular place.
Germany.
Yes, Germany. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because, of course, as Cheryl, you know, is intimating, you would be drawn to all of these particular countries because you would have had previous lifetimes there. And that could be good, could be bad. But usually when we're drawn to somewhere, it's because we've had really good experiences there. You know, if you get a repulsion from someone, oh no, I'd never want to go there, probably because you've had a bad experience there. And same goes with cultures and particular foods, maybe. You know, oh, I just love Chinese food. Could be because you've enjoyed lots of Chinese meals in China in a previous lifetime. Yeah.
And how about things like Atlantis?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, most definitely. If you have very strong feelings towards Atlantis, well, yeah, chances are that you've been there. Yeah. Do you have memories of Atlantis?
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah,
Mm.
describe.
Mm.
Yeah, I haven't narrowed it to that name, but yeah,
Yeah.
that sort of culture. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yes. All places that will be explored.
Mm.
Mm.
I've got a question. If we're wanting to advance as spiritual beings and we have come from other planets or other areas that are more advanced than where we are now,
Yeah.
what is the purpose of coming back again
Mm.
to have these experiences? I mean, I don't necessarily want to experience murdering people as some
No.
of these guys seem to be wanting to do.
No, no.
I don't quite understand why we're coming back to experience these other things that people are doing
Mm.
when possibly we are already more advanced.
Absolutely, absolutely. But to be advanced, you need to have already experienced the denser areas. So part of it is just to experience and to remember and to remind you.
So it's also to remind.
It's also to remind. The other thing that happens quite a lot is because, you know, the vast majority of beings from other planets are more advanced than us. A lot of the time they'll be coming back to help heal the planet. So they're here to bring that energy through from their planet, bring it through you to try to heal the planet here, either humankind and or Mother Earth herself.
It's kind of a sharing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
I've had a love
what
between
I
life
see is
regression.
that it comes through for all of us to raise our vibration up,
Yeah.
so that we release the density
Yep.
and the planet's density, so that we can move. That's why we're all here.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
And if we can have beings amongst us that are vibrating on a higher level, they'll help us to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marie, I'm not sure how to phrase this, but who are the beings that perpetrate all of these heinous crimes that we see on this planet? Hitler. Did he contract to be Hitler or to perpetrate the crimes that he's committed here? If it was agreed or looked at or understood, did he have the right to choose to be the person he was? You know, it leads to, I know, deep philosophical stuff, but you know, I just don't get my head around why there is so much mayhem on this planet, and who are the souls that are perpetrating that?
Yeah, good question.
And I get that. I get that entirely. I think one of the things we have to bear in mind is that when we're looking at these atrocities, we're looking at them through human eyes.
Yeah.
And we're having to interpret it with the limitations of our human brain. And to us, it is heinous, it's horrendous, and it's quite evil. However, there's a school of thought that says there's always a reason. And sometimes we're not permitted to know that reason. Sometimes our human mind just cannot, you know, we can't compute the reason. Sometimes the reason is, and this is going to sound hard, sometimes the reason is that those souls that have stuck their hand up and said, okay, I'll be part of a tsunami or I'll be in a concentration camp, have stuck their hand up purely to have the experience. And I know that's a hard one to get our head around because we're human. But sometimes it's purely and simply for that experience. And therefore somebody like Hitler has said, okay, I'll do it.
So you don't think there's actually a force of evil, that these people, they may come with good intentions, but they actually tune into it and get carried away by it and
I do.
carry out their own will instead
To a degree, I do. As I say, there's a school of thought that says it's experience. However, my personal belief, and it is personal, we're all different, my personal belief is that there are very negative energies on Earth.
Yeah. Still doesn't make sense to be like it, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Not as humans, no.
I'd say a little bit different to that. We're all born as pure souls, I would say, and we have our free will, as was mentioned by Jean, and I think it's that free will on this planet that takes people in those directions. It's not that they were chose to do that initially, to be born here as a clean, pure soul, which is all children are, babies are, and it's the influence of the planet and our free will that it's caused people to be murderers and Hitler and all that. It's beyond, it's not, we can't just say, I feel we just can't say, I chose to come here to be a murderer or to kill millions of people. I come here as a pure soul like everybody else does, and because we have our free will, we made that choice.
And that's quite possible. I think it's all of that. I think there's a little bit of all of that.
Well, it happens to all of us, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
In our own personal lives, we get distracted sometimes. We forget about our spirituality and
Absolutely.
we do things and think afterwards, I shouldn't have done that.
Because we're human.
That. Yeah.
I think that there is a saying that, if all babies are beautiful, where have all the ugly people come from? I think when Bin Laden was probably a cute little baby. Kim Jong-un, or whatever his name is, he's another nowadays Hitler, when you think of it. He treats his own people. And then you've got Trump, who we won't even start talking about him. But I think when you see those things happen in the world, it's a type of learning as well for all of us.
Absolutely.
And there's like a wave of this energy happens, and we sort of learn from that, or we join in with the activity.
I agree completely, because we learn not only by what we do want and we do like, but we also learn about what we don't buy, what we don't like and we don't want, don't we?
And if you grow up in an environment with a religion or a type of, take the Irish. You grow up in one little area where they're saying, we hate them and you never will like them and all this type of thing. How do you escape from that? That's the only environment you know. And then to travel to another country and find out that they all get along over there, and we all put up with the Irish no matter what. And most of us got Irish in us. If we've ever got any gluten intolerance, it's usually from the Irish side of our family. I had an experience where, growing up, I always thought I was going to pass away before I was 21. And so I planned my funeral. It drove my parents insane. I talked about what music I wanted at the funeral, what colour they would wear. It was back in, going up through the 70s. So, it was all about bright colours and paisley and hippie type. Not that I was a hippie, but I loved all the music and all that. And so, in the process of being at my birthday, heavily pregnant with my first child, I thought, okay, I've got this far, but it was, okay, I've got 12 months and I'm still 21, so I still waited for it to happen. And it was always going to be that someone would follow me and stab me in the back and kill me. So years and years later, when I used to go into Spring Hill to the spiritual church, and during a meditation I had the answer to it all, and it was one of those meditations that was very colourful, very real. You could see the woven structures of the fabric that the other person wore, all of that type of thing. I was in a small village off England or somewhere over there, and the Nordic Vikings arrived. It was a very poor village, and I was one of two girls who were running from the rape and pillage that went on, and I got stabbed in the back and killed at around about that age. So it answered the question of memory that I had carried over.
Exactly, yes.
I'm just going back to what Terry said before about euthanasia. With your life, with your work with Life Between Lives, if someone comes back for a purpose, that purpose that their whole journey has been about may not actually come until the end of their life, when they're going through that pain and terminal illness.
Absolutely.
So if they then, do take their life early, before they've finished their natural journey, they might be robbing themselves and they'll have to come back and do the whole thing again.
Oh,
You know, to
quite likely.
experience
Yes, yes, quite likely.
Yeah.
Quite likely.
The other thing I wanted to ask about was karma. When you spoke about the patient who had the sword in the shoulder.
In the shoulder, yeah.
So I'm just wondering about the difference between karma and our life's purpose. So, you know, how do we distinguish? Are we here because, are we going through a process because of karma, or is the problem that we're dealing with as a result of a past life?
I'm not a great believer of karma per se. My belief is more along the lines of balance. We have to have polarity. We have to have the good stuff and the bad stuff. We have to have a balance. And I think that karma comes into play, if you like, when we're still seeking that balance. I don't necessarily think it's just because. I think it's because we have chosen to have a particular experience, if that makes sense. Yeah, I'm not a great believer of, well, you know what, you hurt me in this lifetime, so I'm going to hurt you in that lifetime. My understanding of that would be, you created pain for me in that lifetime, so I might create some pain for you in this lifetime. Then we're even and we've both experienced pain.
How do you find the medical profession deals with you? I mean, how do you get on with it? Do you find that there's still a lot of resistance there?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, funnily enough. It is lessening, and I do work with GPs and psychiatrists and psychologists now, but very few. It is lessening. Slowly, they're coming around. I had a young man a while ago. He had a lump in his chest, and the doctors had said, we don't know what it is, we need to cut it out. And he said, well, I'd like to try something alternative first of all. And they said, we'll give you 3 months and we'll monitor it, and if after 3 months it's still there, we're going to whip it out. So he said, okay, I'll cut you a deal, that's what we'll do. So they monitored him, and he came to me. We did some past life regression stuff. He had actually taken on some cellular memories from his mother in a previous lifetime that had died of breast cancer. And it had really, really affected him, and he wondered, could he have done anything to have prevented it? No, he couldn't. And we came to that understanding. So I worked with him on that. I also worked with him with healing energy in hypnotherapy and Reiki. And over the 3-month period, he was backwards and forwards to the doctors. They were scanning it. The lump was shrinking, and he said each time he went back, they said, well, I don't know what you're doing, but it's shrinking. He said, well, I'm having, regression therapy and energy healing, whatever. No. What are you doing? Anyway, the last time he went back, it had disappeared completely, and they said to him, I don't know what you've been doing, but you must have got hold of some steroids or something. They were the words that he heard from them. Yeah.
Dr. Brian Weiss, who also, as you studied under as well, wonderful man.
Wonderful.
He's a top psychiatrist as well, isn't he?
Absolutely.
And he was keeping what he was doing under wraps for a long time for fear that he would be ridiculed. Yeah. But now that it's all come out, do you think that has made any difference, any impact upon the way psychiatry would view hypnotherapy and what have you?
I think it has, because Brian Weiss and Michael Newton, they were both psychiatrists. They stumbled upon this work completely accidentally. kept it under wraps for a long, long time, and then finally came out with it gently, gently, gently. I think it's made a huge difference, to be quite honest, because I now get not as many as I'd like, but psychiatrists, psychologists referring. Yeah, which is great. Yeah, slowly, the word's getting out. So, thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you listening, and thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, good. I've been asked to talk about protection. There's a couple of schools of thought regarding protection. One of those schools of thought is that hold your energy, be who you truly know yourself to be, and nothing bad will come to you. In my experience, that's not enough. There are dark energies out there. We spoke about them earlier on, and there's lighter dark energies, if you like. You know, sometimes if you're just feeling a bit of colour, or I'm not right, or I'm tired and I don't know why, anything that makes you feel uncomfortable is negative. So my belief, and again it's very personal, but my belief is that we must ensure that we are properly protected. I've had a couple of experiences in my lifetime where I've been slack, or I've got a bit complacent, and I've been knocked sideways by negative energies. When I first came to Australia, there was something in our house, and I wasn't sure what. And it turned out that it was Aboriginal energy from the land, which of course under normal circumstances would be absolutely fine. But this little, he was very small, this little Aboriginal man really didn't want us there. And we had awful problems with the house, we had awful health problems, we had personal problems too. So what I had to do is I had to sit down and have a chat with this little man and say, you know what, we can live side by side quite happily. And in the end, that's what we did, and he's still there now, and we still have a chat, and that's fine. I've done a couple of courses at the Arthur Findlay College in the UK, and I don't know if any of you know about the Arthur Findlay College. It's a spiritual college. It's a huge, great old manor house that looks just like Hogwarts. Absolutely, Hogwarts. And they teach spiritual practices there. And I've done 2 courses there, and they're live-in week. They last for a week, so that they're live-in week courses. And on both occasions I was there, I became very ill, really ill. Cough, cold, chest, head. And the first time I was there, the question over protection came up, not just from me, but from other students too. Now, the Arthur Findlay College is run by the Spiritual National Union, I think it's called, of the UK, SNU. And most of the tutors there are ministers. And the ministers hold themselves in high regard. Quite rightly. They're very knowledgeable, very talented individuals. However, their response to protection, do we need protection, was no, we're safe as we are. No energies would be able to penetrate.
Okay.
Now, bearing in mind, we're talking about a college with hundreds of students every day opening up spiritually. Now that is inevitably going to attract negative energies. And I'm sure the positive intent of everybody there would help to keep a lot of them away. But I do feel that perhaps, 2 or 3 of the more slippery ones would get through. And being the empath that I am, very, very sensitive, and a couple of other people in my group, the same, we were wiped out, we were really ill. And I wondered if it was to do with protection at the time, and I thought, oh, no, they said it's okay, we don't need it. So I left and I got well, because I couldn't fly, I was too ill to fly. Finally came home and reflected on what I'd learnt there, and I enjoyed it, so I decided to go back following year for another course. So I went back, and in the first gathering of my group, my class, the question of protection came up again. And the same answer was given. No, we don't need it. Well, I can tell you that I was only able to attend 1/2 of a day of a week's course before I was confined to my bed. I couldn't get out of my bed. I was so ill. I thought at one point that maybe this is it, and if I'm going to go, perhaps this is the place for me to go. I had to get somebody to come to pick me up to transport me out of there. And I had the college knew, the staff knew that I was sick, and I had no follow-up. Nobody came to see me. If it wasn't for another student there, I could have laid in my bed for a week dead. So my reflection on that was, you know what? I truly do believe that we do need protection, because I wasn't the only one that was sick on both occasions, and there was no reason for us to be sick. We were perfectly healthy when we arrived. So my experience is, yes, you need to be protected any time you're opening up spiritually, and that can just be talking about it in a group like this. It can be meditating. You need to be protected, and that can be done in any number of ways, because we're all different. What I didn't mention earlier on was that we're not all visual. Some people aren't visual at all. Some people just feel, some people just know. So it has to be something that's very comfortable to you. That can be a few words, doesn't have to be any set ritual or routine, in my experience. It can just be a few words. I surround myself in positive universal energy, but I call upon my angels, whatever it is. Some people will wrap a blue velvet cloak around them, and pull the hood over and tuck up the feet, so they're completely surrounded with the blue cloak. And then, of course, there's the white light. I'm sure most of you know about, surrounding yourself in that bubble of white light. I don't think it matters how you protect yourself. I think what matters is the intent that you use when you do protect yourself. Intent is everything. And as long as it's your intention to remain safe, and you really trust and believe that positive energy will keep you safe, well, then I think you will be safe.
Can I ask you a question
Of course.
about, for instance, meditation? With opening the chakras, should you shut the chakras afterwards? Should you close the chakras?
Close them down.
Yeah.
Close them down. I'm not sure that you should shut them completely, but close them down and stay protected all the time. And that protection needs to be done on a regular basis for those of us that are spiritually aware. Because there's lots of stuff happening on a subconscious level that we're not even aware of consciously. So not only when you're having spiritual experiences, such as meditation, whatever it is, but every day. First thing, I tell everybody, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, and however many times during the day you feel the need, just keep strengthening it.
I used to work for a bridal company in the city, and by the time I got home that afternoon after walking or going on the train or whatever, I was flat out walking up the front stairs. I couldn't work out why, and a friend had said to me, "Do you protect yourself every morning?" And I said, "Oh, I do that when I meditate. I do that, when I do readings or whatever." And she said, "Well, you're passing everybody in the street. They're like magnets. They give and take off each other." And as soon as I did that, it made a huge difference. But I made it my decision that when you shower in the morning or at night or whatever, you see that water as being a cleansing thing, but also coating you, and the water flows everywhere, under your feet and everywhere. So it's an automatic thing when you're having a shower that's happening. That's coating your rebirth.
Beautiful. Yes.
And often in a group of people who are opening up, it's often the energy itself that makes you sick as well.
Absolutely.
Because you're not used to that particular energy.
Absolutely right. Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I know this shower method, and I love it. I use it myself. But yeah, good point. We're not just protecting against negative energies out there. We are helping ourselves to retain our own energy and not take on other people's energy. I describe that white light, that bubble of white light, as positive energy, which doesn't stop any other positive energy reaching you, because that's just like passing through like. But it will deflect the negative energy, it will help you to hold on to your energy, and it will help stop others draining your energy. Because quite often people will do that without even realising what they're doing on that subconscious level. It's my belief that when we first incarnate, we start off as very, very basic form. And then, over the many, many incarnations that we have, we evolve. So, what I have experienced from lots of people, and from myself, is that we might start, that first spark, that first incarnation, if it's going to be on this earth, if it's in a different planet, it could be different, but on this earth, we could start off as something as basic as a rock, being a rock, because our energy is so new and so dense. And then at some point we might evolve as a plant, and then from there maybe an ant, and then from there a lizard, and then from there perhaps, I don't know, a cat, and so forth until we actually begin to evolve as humans. That's just my feeling, my experience. And I know lots of people don't believe that we have possibly been animals in past lives. And I don't believe that we can go back. I don't believe once we're here, we can go back. I think we evolve and we keep evolving. So that when we get to being human now is our time to evolve spiritually. Does that make sense a little bit as to why perhaps she was brought to the attention of walking on ants? Because they're sentient beings. And I know that that's not easily acceptable by everybody, but I'm just here sharing my beliefs, my experiences.
So you mean it was a way of her coming to realise that other creatures are also
sentient? Yeah, absolutely. First of all, anybody that wants to be regressed, anybody that wants to go into any type of hypnosis can, if they want to. The people that you hear say, "Oh, I can't be regressed," or "It doesn't work with me," they simply don't want it, because all hypnosis is actually self-hypnosis.
Yeah.
The therapist that you're working with is there to guide you, is there as a facilitator, but you're the one that's doing the work. They're just there to show you how. So yes, anybody that wants to be regressed can be regressed. People do come and that they fight it, but there's usually a good reason for that. They're there for the wrong reason. Somebody's told them to come, or they're just, you know, absolute control freaks, and they don't realise that actually they're in control the whole time. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here and listening to me. It's been great seeing you all. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, Marie.
Thank you.